9 out of 10 people who have what I have die. You're looking at the 10th person.
A massive stroke nearly cost him his life. But despite the odds, MarkMcEwen is making a comeback.
I know that all this can go away.
Tonight, we take you on a journey with Mark and his wife Denise as they find strength in each other and faith in tomorrow.
All you want to do is go to sleep and go away. She would have none of that.
While this may sound like a story about having the courage to overcome, it is most of all a story about the miracle of love.
And we always talk about the wedding vows and when they say in sickness and in health.
She's done over and beyond what the vows say to do. I couldn't have made it without her.
Inside this home, a strong marriage, healthy children, and a father with an exciting new career. But in an instant, tragedy struck, and it's something that could happen to any of us at any time. We are talking about stroke, the third leading cause of death in the United States. And it's that killer that very well could have ended the life of our beloved Mark McEwen. Good evening, I'm Jacqueline London. While Mark defied the odds and miraculously survived the massive stroke, that one devastating moment turned his and his family's life upside down. Tonight, we're sharing Mark's struggles and successes. And for the first time, his wife Denise shares her side of the story, her hopes, her fears, her prayers for her husband, her family, and their future.
You're a team, you're partners.
Theirs, it would seem, is a story of destined love, introduced 3 decades ago, but for years living separate lives. Finally, they would be reunited, and then united in marriage in 2002. 1 year later, beautiful twin boys are born. Mark, a well-known television personality,
We'll be right back after this. See you later.
and his wife Denise had everything they could want: love, family, security. And then that one life-shattering day.
Take us through the steps of what happened that day in November.
Well, Mark was flying home alone from Baltimore, and we thought he had the stomach flu. And I said, when you get in, call me as soon as you land, and if you don't feel up to driving your car home, because his car was parked at the airport, call me and I'll run with the boys and we'll come get you. So it was around 6 o'clock. I was expecting his phone call any minute. Never got a phone call. 6:30, it never got a phone call. Finally, I got a phone call, and it was Mark. I saw his number on caller ID, and I said hello, and there was nobody on the other end. And I'm thinking, hello, hello. There was no one on the other end. And I thought, okay, I lost the call. The call was dropped. He's on his cell phone. So then I get another call. This time I hear the tram, the voice of the tram in the background saying, welcome to Orlando. And so I'm thinking, okay, I'm not dropping these calls. What's going on? And so I then try to call him back. Mark is finally able to say, not good, help me, not good. And with that, I said, Mark, hand the phone to somebody who can talk to me. Hand the phone to somebody who can talk to me. And he handed the phone to a gentleman that was sitting there. And I said to the man, please call 911. You know, something is terribly wrong with my husband.
That terrible something was a stroke. Doctors say Mark suffered a near fatal stroke as his plane landed at Orlando International Airport. Unable to walk or talk, Mark was all alone.
What they had actually done, Jackie, is, and I'm not sure how this happened, but they wheeled Mark to the curb and left him curbside by himself waiting for his ride. And I don't know if people tried to talk to him and they couldn't get a response, so they just left it. So
In that condition, they just left him there.
yeah, it's horrible to think that he went through that alone. It just pains me to think of that. And especially that first week or so, I was truly haunted by him being there alone and nobody there to help him.
Mark was finally rushed to Sand Lake Hospital. Unsure what she would find, Denise rushed to be by Mark's side.
Instant change. Yeah. What was your initial fear?
Oh, that he was going to die. My father died when I was 7 years old. And that isn't something that leaves you. And even at 7, I don't remember my father that well. And my kids are 3, not even 3 at the time. And I'm thinking, oh my God, my kids aren't going to know their father.
Mark slipped in and out of a coma, barely clinging to life.
Some of your darkest moments? When was it the most difficult?
I think probably was the doctor telling me that I might have to make some decisions on Mark's behalf, some life and death decisions for Mark.
Denise also had to make the phone calls no one ever wants to make.
Having to call his sister, my best friend, and saying, you need to come. If you want to see Mark, you need to come now.
Doctors worked frantically to save Mark, and at times it seemed it would be too little too late.
He was very, very close to death. The diagnosis of basilar artery thrombosis is a very, very poor prognosis.
But miraculously, Mark pulled through. He would survive.
I think I probably just laid there on his chest for quite some time. I just wanted to hold him. And we cried together, and I told him I knew everything was going to be okay, not to worry. He was in the right place. He was back in Florida. He was back home, and we were going to get through this. You're just so glad that they're alive, and you don't really care in that moment what else happens or what. You don't even think what the future is going to bring. You're just glad you're with that person.
But soon those questions would begin to creep in.
I smiled.
As Mark left the hospital and began therapy, what were the odds he would be able to return to the career he knew and loved?
He's made his living with his voice since I can remember. So it's like, okay, what do we do now?
Sudden stroke shattered the life that Mark and Denise knew. Now the man who had never been hospitalized for more than a day would remain here for more than a month. Mark was unable to walk, barely able to talk, was completely reliant on his doctors, nurses, and most of all, his wife. It would be up to Denise to gather strength enough for them all.
I never cried in front of Mark. When I first got to the hospital, I cried. And I told myself after that I wasn't going to cry in front of him. I didn't want him to see me crying because I don't cry often, and I didn't want him to be afraid because of my tears. I think I tried to make him laugh. I tried to make the situation seem a lot less than what it was.
But it was serious, and Denise knew it was up to her to care for and protect her husband, the strong, independent man she's known and loved for 31 years. She wouldn't let him down.
When he was in the hospital, and a lot of people from the station came. Henry and Skip were there, and I remember his right arm, used to really, move like this, and so I remember they came into the room, and I didn't want them to see Mark like that. And my mother said I took Mark's arm, and I just held it down as hard as I could so they wouldn't see his arm shaking. I didn't want them to see him in that condition, and that was a very low moment, going, oh gosh, I've got I've got to make Mark look better than he actually is.
You were even trying to protect his image at that point.
Yes, I was trying to protect his image at that point.
Already the mother of twin toddler boys, Denise was now catapulted into a new role, caretaker for her husband. And not just for his body, but more importantly, for his spirit.
I just, kept trying to give him as much positive reinforcement that I could. And in actuality, I had no idea what was going to happen, but those are the little white lies that are okay to tell.
There are so many people out there who are thrown into the role of caretaker. Mm-hmm. How difficult is that? You're taking care of twin toddler boys, and you're trying to maintain that, and now all of a sudden you're a caretaker as well. Yeah. How difficult is it to?
I was so lucky because my mother was here. She lives over in Melbourne, and she came running when this happened. My sister was here. I have wonderful, wonderful friends. I have a neighborhood of just the best neighbors ever. So I had so much support. So I was a lucky caretaker. I had so much help.
Both Mark and Denise found comfort and encouragement in the thousands of letters, cards, and emails that poured in from across Central Florida and around the nation.
I was completely shocked to learn of your stroke and wish you a quick and complete recovery. We need you back to jumpstart our mornings.
And Mark received dozens of phone calls, some from the likes of Tony Bennett and Garth Brooks. Even former President George Bush sent best wishes to his old friend. And as Mark's Christmas homecoming approached, Denise found a focus and an escape, something she says every caregiver needs.
I was determined to have a really grand Christmas that year and to make it more grand than ever and more special than ever for Mark. And so I went from store to store to store looking for silver and gold ornaments to put on my tree, my Christmas tree. I kind of wandered in. It was a very thankless thing to do. I could go there and just look at these ornaments and kind of get away from things, and it was great. It was mindless and it was very therapeutic.
And before this ever happened, you probably didn't realize the strength that you would have to be there for Mark.
No, I always thought I was a fairly strong woman, but I was put to the test. And I found out I was stronger than I even thought I was.
With Mark now at home, Denise took on even more responsibility.
It was definitely tough. In essence, I had 4 kids here that I had to care for, and I was the only grown-up at the time. And
how would she manage? Coming up, Denise shares with us how their children made even the darkest moments bearable.
The doctor says I should use my right hand. You'll see me drop them. You'll hear me talk. In a week, in 2, you'll see me put them down easier. Now it's hard. Soon it will be easier.
After weeks in the hospital, Mark was now at home full-time, and that meant Denise was on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, tending to her husband's every need.
How long did you have to shave him and dress him and help him bathe?
Oh, several months.
Every day?
Every day.
A lot of people can't fathom that.
Yeah, it was tough. It was, it's tough to spend that much time with somebody, number one, but to have them totally rely on you when I have, 3 kids at home and his stepdaughter being in New York that were also relying on me. It was definitely tough. In essence, I had 4 kids here that I had to care for, and I was the the only grown-up at the time. I fed all these babies, and then I'm feeding my husband as well. I mean, I literally was feeding him from a spoon, from a fork. I mean, he couldn't do anything. Literally, Mark couldn't shave when he came home. He had a walker. I had to make sure the walker was by him. He had to shower, you know, sitting down. I had to do everything for him. I literally had to, you know, almost dress the man, which was very, very difficult. So we were together a lot. We withstood that, so.
And there were also the daily drives into downtown Orlando for Mark's therapy sessions.
Dade, deed, died, doed, dude.
Many times packing up the twins and Mark was more than Denise bargained for.
So I got the babies up, I would get them dressed. They would actually be the first ones in the car. I would get them all buckled in, and then I would go get Mark. And once he got to the car, there was a problem of getting him up into the car. So we made the most of it, and we had a couple of chuckles and a couple of times where I pulled my hair out.
As Denise said on more than one occasion during our interview, it was their ability to laugh together that got them through some of the toughest times.
It's very frustrating.
But it was also their incredible love and devotion to one another that would allow one to be strong when the other broke down.
He once said to me something about not knowing how it feels, and I said, "That's where you're wrong, Mark." I said, "I've been there beside you this whole time. I do know how it feels. I'm not that person, but I've experienced as close hand as anybody could without it actually happening to them." So I really do feel like we were hand in hand in this, you know, that we were suffering through this together. There was one night that I did break down, and I cried, and I said, "Aren't you mad that this happened to you? And you know, everything was going so well, and why did this have to happen to you? And you know, so much has been taken away, and you know, we're such good people, and you know, this shouldn't have happened to us, and don't you get really mad?" And he stayed strong, Jackie. He stayed strong. So I had my little mini meltdown and felt much better afterwards. And I almost think it was good for him to see that this was or had affected me. You know, that I was where he was. I was in the same place he was. And I think it was almost helpful that I finally verbalized some of what I was keeping inside.
And despite the ups and downs of Mark's care and recovery, there was one constant comfort for Denise, her children.
They're also the ones that when the day is done and you're lying down in bed and you're holding them and they're kissing you goodnight and you're going, "Okay, I can do this tomorrow. You know, I can do this again tomorrow, and I can do it again the next day, because, you know, it's all worthwhile." Can you say, "I love you very much"?
I love you very much.
Faster.
I love you very much.
10 times. I love you too, honey.
Showing and sharing their love had always been important to Mark and Denise. But after Mark's stroke, it became crucial to ensuring Mark's recovery.
I think it comes from love, out of love, and loving somebody and gaining strength for their sake. To see Mark make those steps and knowing that he was trying his hardest to get better and to be the head of this family again.
And Mark did work very hard every day, several hours a day, while at rehab.
Can you do overhead?
And even at home.
I pick up coins with my right hand, like that. That is one of the exercises I use to strengthen my right hand.
I remember him being in rehab and with the walker, and his first big thing was to be able to walk into the bathroom by himself. Then it was walk to the TV by himself. Then it was walk to the hallway by himself. And then I came in one night, he said, "Denise, I walked halfway down the hall by myself." And you know, I was just there being the biggest cheerleader I could. Oh my God, halfway down the hall. And then the next day he had gotten all the way down the hall. And then we were like, okay, now if you can get halfway down the hall without your walker. I mean, just to really revel in those small steps that they're taking, because they need to know that those small steps aren't small at all, they're huge.
And you got 3 in that little box.
Yes,
Look at all those letters, because before, when we started, we used the entire board for an A. And now, look at how many letters you have in one little itty-bitty box.
They had him writing on a chalkboard. And the first thing he wrote up on the chalkboard was my name. So, and it was, you know, kind of scribbled, but the first thing he did, the first thing he wrote was my name. So I just thought that was so sweet.
Whether it was walking,
Much better, first time doing it without help. All right, can you go backwards?
talking,
The skin around his nose wrinkled. The skin around his eyes wrinkled.
Feel it in your mouth, the way that sound. Wrinkled.
or writing.
That last name get you.
Denise was right there with Mark, cheering him on, so proud each time he succeeded.
You did it! Remember before we couldn't finish an entire one, and you did this in less than 30 minutes.
And when Mark joined us for our interview, it was clear he knew his stroke recovery would have never been possible without his wife's strength and devotion.
And we always talk about the wedding vows, and when they say in sickness and in health. Maybe you don't really think about what that means, but you've really been tested.
Yeah, we should have left that one out.
She's done over and beyond what the vows say to do. I couldn't have made it without her. And she's been a partner, a caregiver, she pushes me.
And did you have any idea that she would be this strong?
She was very, very strong, and I didn't know that. Her mother said to me, when I said how strong she was, her mother said, and remember, Denise never went through this. And her mother was right. A stroke is a big thing. It's a hard thing to get over. And all you want to do is go to sleep and go away. She would have none of that. She made sure I exercised, and she made sure I drove, made sure I did a lot of things.
Tell him what happened after you drove. We drove a mile up to the park to take the boys to the park. It was just a mile down the street. And we pull up to the park, and Mark just starts crying. And I'm like, what are you crying about? He said, I drove. I mean, he was just so happy to be driving again. And I knew that would happen. And he got to drive home too. He did such a good job.
Now I drive everywhere.
Yeah.
I am driving and shifting in a Beamer, BMW. Show them. See?
How long have you been driving?
About 6 weeks.
How's your hand?
Well, my hand could be better, but it's okay.
Mark also credits Denise with making sure he returned to work.
And here's my buddy, MarkMcEwen.
Thank you, everybody. I look great. My voice is still not right. It will be soon. She was the reason I came back to Local 6 the first time. I didn't want to go. She said, go. I was scared.
What were you terrified of?
I was terrified that they would see the network guy at his most vulnerable. And I didn't want them to see that.
The network guy also returned to the national spotlight. Mark's longtime friend and colleague Harry Smith traveled from New York to Orlando to allow Mark to share his story with all of America.
I work harder now than I did when I had a job.
Yeah.
It's been speech, it's been my balance,
Yeah.
it's been to think right.
Here with us live in the studio is MarkMcEwen. You saw in that piece, could barely talk, could not walk. You're here this morning, live and in person. I tell you what, talk about lighting up a room. Since early this morning, Mark has been walking around, hugging. Everybody has just been hugging you. So happy to see you. What did it mean to you during your rehabilitation to hear from so many people you cared about?
Oh, it meant a lot. And I want to thank my wife, Denise, Tony, everyone. It meant a lot. It was hard, but I'm glad I did it.
Why?
I want people to see and know that this is hard, but you can overcome this. And I want people to see the face of this. Most people, they have a stroke and they go away. And hey, I want people to know there is hope.
Coming up, faith and their future.
I really do believe, Jackie, that this stroke for Mark, and we don't know what the plan is, what the bigger picture will be, but I do believe it's a blessing. And I'll see it that way soon, I know.
Denise and Mark share how their faith keeps them going and how Mark's stroke has changed their life, even for the better.
God is a comedian because the old joke again goes, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans for tomorrow.
All right, here we go.
It's been just over a year and a half since Mark suffered the massive stroke that nearly ended his life. And while both he and Denise say there have been times when they have asked why it had to happen to him, they always find a way back to faith and remember they are blessed that Mark is alive.
9 out of 10 people who have what I have die. You're looking at the 10th person. I used to be carefree, live and let live, and now I'm a man on a mission.
That mission is to share his story, hoping to prevent others from suffering his same fate. Last October, Mark took his initial steps in that crusade, speaking publicly for the first time to a group of stroke survivors in Orlando.
Brave is when you know you're doing something. I can do nothing else, but I will be here for everyone here, and I will be here for all stroke victims. Here's what I know. In my bathroom, I have a sign from my mother-in-law. It says, never, never, never give up. That's true. And I see that every day. Oh, it's easy to give up. It's harder to do what you have to do and be strong, be who you are. All I can say is, it gets better, and don't give up. There were stroke survivors in wheelchairs. They couldn't, and I drove to the Orlando Marriott to give my first speech. And it was at that time I thought, you're a lucky guy. This is hard, but I dodged a bullet. And I want people to see that although it's hard, it can be done. This is March 15th. I put on my suit and tie and am going to work to meet with a person from the Stroke Association. I talk better, but I still have a ways to go. And I did all of this myself.
Mark has also joined forces with the National and American Stroke Associations, traveling the nation giving speeches. He even received a National Honor Award at a Power to End Stroke event in Atlanta this May.
I want to thank the American Heart Association, the American Stroke Association, the Power to End Strokes. What I knew about strokes before I had one was nothing. What I know now could fill this room. And be healthy, be healthy.
Again, I just had to trust that there was a reason and that a lot of good will come from this. Because he is living, you know, and he could have been taken and he wasn't. And I do believe there was a big reason for that. He was saved and he's here for a reason, just as we all are.
Every day on the treadmill, I'm awkward. But my father says...
You're praying on the treadmill?
Yeah.
Oh, you are?
Yeah. I thank him for the ability to exercise. I thank him for the health of my family and friends and my health. And I also say hi to my mom.
Our family, it was always important to us and the most important thing to us, but now, I mean, we don't miss telling each other we love each other. We don't miss, you know, giving each other a kiss. We don't miss tucking our kids into bed. There's so many things that we make sure we don't miss anymore because we know there might not be a chance tomorrow.
Do you think your marriage is stronger now than it was before?
I think it's different now. I think we had a strong marriage to begin with, but I think it's different in that I now know I can go through anything with this man. And I'll still love him in the morning.
Has this been the biggest test of your married life?
It's been one thing after another.
Right.
And if anyone deserves a break, she does.
You promise?
Yes.
So what does the future hold for Mark and Denise?
I think having the kids. You know, when you have kids, it changes your life and you want to continue for them and you want to make things better for them.
Coming up, a look at Mark's new diet, his new life, and the hard work it takes to make a career comeback.
What a fist.
For Mark and his family, it has been a long journey back from the brink of death. So now it is time to put the worst behind them and focus on the future. Most importantly, making sure Mark is around to enjoy it.
I've said this before, by the time they know what this is, it should be in my rearview mirror. And all they know is that Dad is home. That's all they know. And they want to play, they count, do their ABCs, and that they know nothing about this.
I think having the kids. You know, when you have kids, it changes your life and you want to continue for them and you want to make things better for them. So having these little babies still was a big motivator.
Motivation enough for Mark to make some major lifestyle changes.
They got me easy the first time. I'm making it harder to get me, if they do, another time.
I am helping Mark work towards is he's truly changing his life so this doesn't happen again. And that's the real important piece of all of this. He's
healthy.
Changed the way he's eating. He's changed his exercise habits. He's changed so much about his day-to-day life, and I know that this change is not just a change for today, that this is a lifelong change that he's making. And he's getting healthier, and he's getting stronger, and he will never be in a position, we hope, that would cause another stroke.
Yeah.
And so much of Mark's genetic makeup, puts him in right up there for those kinds of conditions. So he's got to be extra special good.
I eat a lot of fish. I eat a lot of veggies.
A lot of chicken.
Fruit, chicken. I don't eat as much sugar, salt, fried foods. No. And that's bad for you.
He doesn't think that I cook very well because I can't cook with salt. I can't use butter.
You didn't cook beforehand, that's right.
I know, but I still, now, I'll never get brownie points for cooking because my food is it's very minimal, and it's usually the same things. And
Mark is also back in therapy, even more intensive than the last. His good hand, his left, is actually bound inside a mitt so that Mark can only use his right.
I should have done this a year ago, but they didn't offer it where I was going to do my rehab. So I'm doing it now.
And while Denise doesn't have to drive Mark to rehab this time around, she still makes sure she is with him in spirit.
Oh, look at that. She does. She lives in the notes.
The brain is a funny thing. Funny, not ha-ha, funny in a good way. They are rewiring the brain. I thought I would never use this again. And this hand is coming along.
Mark's writing also continues to improve. Instead of drawing letters big enough to fill a chalkboard,
how about leaf toward the end of the word? Your L and your E are perfect.
He now writes on a simple sheet of lined notebook paper.
It still shakes, but it's...
But he's writing with his right hand now, where before he always wrote left-handed. So since this new therapy, he's now using his right hand to write.
And while at home in the quiet of his own office, Mark does what is likely his most important therapy. He reads aloud.
In the second plot, Evan is dealt with Mr. G's inflexible decision to turn him into the boat-building harbinger of wet doom, a job he doesn't want. I read off the laptop on the internet from the Washington Post, the New York Daily News, the New York Post, because it's like a teleprompter.
And even to this day, no matter where he goes, Mark says people stop him to say hello and ask how he's doing. Many times they marvel at his progress.
Day to day is like a diet. You don't see it, but when you go away and see people who haven't seen you for a month or two, they say, gee, you've done well. I say, I have? Because when you're living it, when you're doing it, you don't say anything. And she doesn't say anything.
Although you are talking very well today.
I am.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Good.
Despite the improvements, Mark says there are still a few old skills he hasn't yet remastered.
He still is not back to playing golf, so when the first time you go over and tee it up, that'll be a real special day.
That's this therapy.
Yeah.
They say I can play golf when I finish with the therapy.
Soon to be back on the links, but more importantly, back on camera.
I think a doctor can talk until he's blue in the face, and people might believe him, might not. When they see a person who's been through what they've been through, they listen.
Coming up, Mark's new mission for Local 6, Central Florida, and the nation.
Investigators frantically tried to find him. That's a terrible story.
He dreams big.
And he should. Mark is now a man on a mission, a man with a message.
I think a doctor can talk until he's blue in the face, and people might believe him, might not. When they see a person who's been through what they've been through, they listen. And I've been through a lot, and they listen to what I say.
Mark believes sharing his stroke story could save thousands of lives. He says he wants to create the same awareness for the number 3 killer in America that the top 2, cancer and heart disease, receive.
I give speeches, I will give speeches as for stroke survivors. I said to you, I want to do for strokes as Lance Armstrong did for cancer. I was put here for a reason.
And while Mark wants to primarily focus his energies on stroke, he also plans to reach out to all of us who want to learn to live a healthier life. Mark has also returned to television as the face of Good Neighbor 6, a community campaign committed to educating Central Florida on a variety of health concerns.
Hello, I'm Mark McEwen.
And I'm Dr. Arnie Einhorn.
We're here to introduce an exciting new relationship between Local 6 and Orlando Regional Healthcare.
While Mark isn't ready to get back behind the anchor desk just yet, he does see himself back in our living rooms, doing what he does best, getting people to open up and share.
I do believe that he's needed out there and that there's a big hole without him. He is just somebody that you like and you want to see.
I imagine myself back on the air. I don't know about anchoring, but I do know about doing interviews and being a reporter. My new beat will be health, and I think that I can do. Asking people questions, getting them to open up, I can do that.
And of course, there is Mark's book, Change in the Weather, due out in May of 2008.
F. Scott Fitzgerald says there are no second acts. I think I'm about to embark on my second act, and it may be bigger than the first act.
And you can bet, as she has been since the beginning, Mark's wife Denise will be there for whatever comes their way. Mark, so many memories along this wall.
Yeah, and I want to say this wasn't my idea. It was Denise's idea. I didn't want to put the pictures up. But when I look at the wall, it's I see famous people. That's my first part of my career. But the second chapter, I will help people. This was before I had a stroke. And the second part is going to be, I think, bigger than this.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, Mark.
Jackie, you're welcome.
And thank you to all of you for watching. Have a good night.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ta da ta.
Thanks for making dinner, Dad. Oh, wow.
Oh, you are beautiful.
Come on, sweetie.
You
I love you.
Beautiful.
I can feel the shoulder. Happy Easter to you.
Oh, look at you. All right. Woohoo.
If you would like more information on stroke or how to prevent a stroke, there are two websites we'd like you to visit. The American Stroke Association at www.strokeassociation.org and the National Stroke Association at www.stroke.org. Stroke is the #1 cause of adult disability and the #3 killer in America. But through education and awareness, lives can be saved.